Hi, everybody. Welcome again to another episode of the ShopNotes Podcast. I'm your host, Phil Huber, joined today with John Doyle. Logan is out on assignment. That's what we're calling it today. Today's episode is brought to you by Shaper Tools. They're the makers of the Shaper Origin, the handheld CNC router that brings digital precision to the craft of woodworking. With it, you can tackle joinery, cabinetry, hardware installation, and more with speed and precision. Try it risk-free in your shop for 30 days. Visit shapertools.com to learn more.
Yep. And just a reminder, every time someone buys a Shaper and mentions our name, we get to do one more podcast.
Right.
So
keep that in mind for last minute stocking stuffers, maybe, I think. Yeah. How big of a stocking would you need for a Shaper Origin?
Right. I think it'll fit.
Okay. I think it'll work. We can do it. You know, one of the things I was thinking about for today's episode is the concept of extra work surfaces. In that, you know, we have the main bench here in the studio. You and I both have workbenches in our shops, but there are also extra surfaces that are necessary or at least handy when you're in the middle of a project. And here's where I'm going with that, and I think I'd like you to talk about it a little bit. The router cabinet that you did for the current issue of Woodsmith has a drop-down door. So that's where behind that door is where where you have for router bit storage. But you have that as a drop-down so that you're creating an extra work surface. And then you also have a project coming up for sawhorses, which again is another type of extra work surface. So maybe talk a little bit about both of those designs and what you were thinking there.
Mm-hmm. Well, according to the laws of workshop science, no matter how many work surfaces or the area of work surface you have, it will get filled. So like all of your tools and work pieces are like air molecules, and the work surface is a volume of space. It will fill the space. So that is just workshop science 101 right there. So I am big into having extra work surfaces because usually my workbench is full. Regardless if I'm working on it, stuff just gets put on it. My table saw surface becomes my workbench, and then I need probably a set of sawhorses with an old door on it to like do whatever else. So I'm big into using work surfaces in my space. The only problem is when those spaces stay around and stay cluttered. So as you mentioned, the router storage project that I did for the most recent issue of Woodsmith that will be coming out soon has a drop-down door. So it has a little kind of work surface that you can work on, and would be above, say, your router table. So you're not just doing stuff on your router table all the time. But the other thing about having work surface and not having it filled is you want it to go away. So then it just doesn't collect clutter. So like that, the door would go up. You can't store stuff on it. It goes away. Then it forces you to put stuff away and stay organized. So that kind of outlines that, I guess, a little bit. And then I'm working on a sawhorse project for the next issue and have included kind of an optional work surface that would kind of snap onto the sawhorses. But again, that would go away. You can hang it on the wall when you're done, so you don't have more space for clutter. So I guess that's kind of my woodworking theory on it is have work surfaces, but then be able to put those away so you're not just more place to collect clutter.
I would agree with you. And I think, we've talked in the past about my not having a table saw in the shop, and I found that very often my table saw just served as a dumping ground for stuff. And even in the studio here, we have a Powermatic saw that has, it's got a pretty big side table on it. And anything to the right of the rip fence is just storage. And there's work pieces there and setup tools and clamps for auxiliary fences and project plans, all kinds of stuff over there. It seems like every time we want to do a shot over at the table saw, we have to spend 5 minutes decluttering to do that. So I like the idea of the temporary work surface, and I think that's part of the evil genius of that router cabinet, especially the way we propped it and show it, is if you have that right above your router table, like you said, it keeps the router table from becoming that extra work surface. But then in order to use the router table, you got to close that door and be focused about what exactly you're doing there. So,
So do the extra step, use it, don't put it down, put it away. So,
and I have ShopNotes years ago did stacking sawhorses that we did on the TV show once, and I've just found those to be super practical and handy. And what I like about it is that I can stack the two of them together, tuck them under the end of my workbench, and they're out of the way. They don't take up any extra floor space. And but you're right, you do have to get into the habit of, like, when you're done with that, wrap it up, put it away. Otherwise, it's like a government program, temporary government program that turns into a permanent government program.
Right. Yeah, and the other thing is, as you know, I'm big into shop carts. I love that as a work surface. But like kind of what you were saying with the sawhorses, it's nice to design those so they get put away either under the workbench or under some shelf or something, so they're tucked away. And you can't keep stuff on top of them because, they just become clutter collectors at that point. So,
because I've noticed, we have a relatively large cart that we used to use for roundtable segments on the show, and we use it as, just another way to show a different kind of workbench top or whatever. And it's been a very handy cart, but again, because it's always around and it's nearby, it's like whenever we clean off the table saw, put the stuff on the cart. Whenever we clean off the workbench, put the stuff on the cart. Even right now I'm looking over at it, and sadly it's got most of my stuff on it right now, but so I'll claim responsibility, but it's very easy to have a cart that does that kind of thing. Although I will say that having that cart there means that more than likely the workbench stays a little cleaner.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of the funny thing of the TV show and the set is a lot of time in like YouTube comments or just comments on our videos like, oh, your shop's too clean, you guys don't work in it, it's not a real workshop. It's like, no, we just keep moving the clutter off camera. Like it's just on another surface just right outside the camera. It's behind a closet, a door, it's hidden. We're slobs just like everybody else. It's just
what you don't see is that if the camera would just kind of pan 45 degrees, you'd see where everything went.
Yep. You just can't see it. So
I'd be interested to know people who are listening to the podcast what they use as auxiliary work surfaces and how permanent they are. Whether it's a combination of like drop down, fold up sort of surfaces, or do you have extra carts that you use for, like a workbench companion kind of a thing, sidekick idea. I know when I designed my tool cabinet, based off of one that was in ShopNotes, one thing that I liked about it is that there's a center compartment that, again, instead of having like a door that opens to the side, is just a drop down door that's held in place by a couple of just little chains. And that's really handy for, I'm in the middle of a project and, I need my router plane or whatever, and I want it close by, but it doesn't have to be on the bench at the time. So I can have a couple of things sitting on that small surface. It's probably, 16 inches by 8 or 9 inches or something like that. It's not a big space, but just kind of a little staging area. I've also done that a little bit with some small, not really small, shallow shelves that I've mounted on the wall right behind my workbench. So, it's only like 3 inches wide, but it's just a place where I can keep tools close, but off the bench so that I don't have to feel like I have to clear the decks if I need to do work on a big glued up panel or something like that. So,
yeah. I think that's why we have a drafting table or architect's table in our next issue as well. And I think that's why you see those and they have angled tops typically on them. It's not for drawing comfort. It's so you can't stack up stuff on there. It's always clear because if you put anything on, it's just going to slide off. So I think that's when they invented that type of table. That's why, because this has always been a problem since day one.
And then they just pitch it as being more comfortable,
right?
Just to cover up that. Because it's like architects and draftspeople and artists, they're, rather than saying we're super smart and came up with a way not to have a cluttered desk, is I'm just going to tilt it and then automatically it's not cluttered. So
yeah, it's just you just pitch any new thing as an ergonomic feature. So it's not because we're slobs naturally as humans. So.
Although I've seen some old style, like a blanket chest, blanket chest with a couple of drawers underneath it. But instead of having a flat top, had an angled surface on it. That was, that's kind of crazy, like a Fox too, because you could always say, well, it's an angled top so that when you open it up, like you have more straight in access to it. It's not just a, big deep hole.
Right.
When
that's probably too why they have the domed top steamer trunks. To eliminate that flat surface, because you put stuff on it and you can't get in it. So dome the top and problem solved. Just ingenuity.
Yeah. Our ancestors, they were smart, man.
Yep. So.
All right. So like I said, I want to hear about your ideas for extra shop work surfaces and also sawhorses, because I feel like that's a perennial area of creativity. Because you think of sawhorses, at least I used to, as just kind of either the just kind of scabbed together 2x4 conglomerations that are mostly nails and random offcuts, to the folding plastic things that you find at your discount retailers that do a good job until they collapse.
Yeah. I kind of noticed that too when I was looking into designing these sawhorses for the upcoming issue. It's like there's a lot of different styles and takes on it. You have the fold flat or hang on the wall. You have the stacking type that could be, the plywood ones like you were mentioning before, or the 2x4 construction type. And so I went with more of a trestle style. Like we have in our video studio, but so more of, I guess, showing off your woodworking joinery skills and kind of, church it up a little bit. Yeah. Sawhorses you can take to church.
Right. And I've always liked that idea of being able to, it fits right in with our nature here, is that we want our workshops to be fun places to be in, and that means that they look good too. So yeah, it's an auxiliary work surface, but it can look good. It can be a way to either show or practice skills that you would use on other furniture pieces. Like the James Krenoff, very slender, lightweight, trestle-style sawhorses that are kind of modeled after Japanese versions. And I've always liked the look of those. I built a set because I was teaching a class and we did that style. And it's amazing to me is how lightweight those trestle sawhorses can be made and still be super strong. It's a pretty cool feature. So
yeah, I think my take on shop projects is when I get done, I want somebody to say that's overkill. And I don't know if that's just like the woodworker, craftsman / engineer in me, where it's like, that's just too much. And I'd be like, thank you. That is a compliment.
Right.
That's what I was going for.
Yeah. I do that with which usually ends up being the reason that my Christmas projects still run right down to the deadline, is because I'm going over the top. You know, for a while on my wife's side of the family, we were doing gift exchanges and, picking names. And we always put like a price limit on it. And it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I see your price limit and I totally ignore it based on very nice materials that I have in my shop already. So technically I built this project for the, $5 box of screws, but it's got like $300 worth of quarter sawn white oak in it or something.
Right. You're like, I'm not trying to show everybody up, but I just did. Sorry.
Merry Christmas to me.
Yep.
All right, so as we roll into the gift giving and gift receiving season, have you requested any tool woodworking things, or do you have anything on your list that you would have your eye on? Should anybody out there want to give you something?
Right. No one that gets me anything is listening to this, so. Yeah, it's always hard because it's like, as an adult with adult money, I just go out and get myself something. Usually, and I'm not like Logan. I don't need fancy tools and all that stuff and expensive stuff. So I wouldn't go that far. But if somebody wanted to get me an expensive tool, then by all means, go ahead. But yeah, it's always So it's hard to get me gifts. Everybody complains if they have to get me gifts because I'm a hard person to get gifts for, because I don't really want anything, and if I do, I just get it, and I'm just the worst. So
yeah,
sorry, world.
Which kind of warms my heart a little bit, because I've heard that from my family too, where it's like either the things that I want are very, very specific, so there's no surprise element in it,
right?
Because
like,
they're going to
have the link to exactly what I want. Just click it and buy and ship.
Right. So. Yeah. That, or, I'm pretty well supplied on a lot of stuff. So anything that I would want now is going to be super pricey. Yeah. And it's like one of those things where I'm looking at you carbide cutter head for my benchtop planer or Festool domino sort of thing. And it's one of those things where it's like, I'm too cheap to even buy those things for myself. So
yeah. Or it's like, get me rolls of PSA sandpaper, because that's expensive. And you never want to buy that. It's like, I don't want to buy that. That's dumb.
Right.
But if I got it, it'd be like, hey, cool, thanks. Now I don't have to buy this.
That would be ideal. Yeah. That would be perfect.
So.
No, that's a good one. Sandpaper rolls are.
I was just thinking, my siblings and my wife and my brother-in-law, we used to do like a gift exchange at Christmas where we'd draw a name and have like secret, Santa thing where you wouldn't tell anybody. And one year I drew my own name, and I was like, oh, everybody complains like getting gifts from me every year. So my gift is just, I'm going to not like, call foul and throw my name back in the hat. I'll just keep my name, save everybody the trouble. And I got myself my own gift. I don't remember what it was, probably some tools, something real nice. I probably went over the limit on what the price was supposed to be, because I wanted to treat myself nice, give myself something really good. So that year I just kept my own name and saved everybody the trouble. But I think that was the last year we did that. I think I ruined it for everyone. So sorry.
Yep.
But so
I also have buyer's remorse before I even buy something. So I usually end up avoiding. There's the Robert Duvall and Michael Caine movie, Secondhand Lions. And there's a line in there about, like, if two old guys talking to a young kid, and they're like, if you see something you don't have, get it yourself. Or better yet, learn to do without. And that apparently is my life motto, and I didn't realize it until that movie came out. So yeah,
I'm kind of the same way there too. It's like, if I don't have it, I could probably do without and just make do with what I have. I don't need to go buy something else, but what fun is that? So.
All right, so there's 2 assignments for listeners and viewers of the podcast. Is what's your auxiliary work surface situation look like in your shop? And what would you love to get from Santa this holiday season for a special gift? And maybe even something that you wouldn't get yourself or have somebody else do it for you. So if you want to send that as an email, you can do that woodsmith@woodsmith.com, or you can put it in the comments section on our YouTube channel, where you can also watch the podcast as well as our other woodworking videos. I also want to do a plug as people are preparing for holiday season and gift ideas. ShopNotes magazine just came out. Brand new issue, all digital, so you don't have to worry about wrapping anything or finding a place to store the back issues. It's all in the cloud. You can check out the new ShopNotes magazine and subscribe quarterly and digital. Comes out, so you can check that out at ShopNotes.com on how to subscribe to that. We'll put a link to that in the show notes page today. Special thanks to Shaper Tools for sponsoring today's episode. They make that handheld CNC router. Looks a little bit like R2-D2 meets router and gives you digital precision for your woodworking without taking up a lot of space. You can check out the tool along with all the accessories. They also have project guides and videos to help you become not only a better user of the Shaper Origin, but a better woodworker in general. Just go over to their website, shapertools.com, to learn more. Thanks, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Bye.